So thank you so much, Bani, and team, and everyone who's present here to give me this opportunity to share a few of my learnings and practices. And what we are looking ahead is how do we now make the best use of the technology in the current situation and take it forward in other circumstances as well. I'm heading maths department at Sanskriti School, and Sanskriti School is has been using Google Suite for Education for last 5 years. So we brought in use of not only Google solution but also the Chromebooks into our classroom, and that has made technology very well integrated. So it's been a slow but steady progress for all of us, and we are still learning and improving with each attempt. One of the ways, as I'm listening to the presentations today, and Khan Academy is definitely a brilliant source for taking the learning from what we are now calling as a remote learning from home to the home of student, or from school to the home of the students. You're looking for a way to take these resources to the children, and one of the ways that has worked in not only in the virtual classroom situation but also in a blended mode is the presence of the Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is one of the apps of Google, which has integrated everything under one platform. So whether you are using only the Google apps, which is Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Forms, but or you're using some videos, it all gets the transactions, the interactions of teacher and student gets done through a portal. So we are looking at an understanding of using the Google Classroom as one of the main point from where the transactions of the classroom, whether it is a remote learning or a blended learning, is happening. So just in case you are not familiar with what Google Classroom is, we are going to spend a little time in understanding what Google Classroom does and how do we start using Google Classroom, and in the current situation, how one can plan to use this portal to make students stay connected with us. So again, what can we do as an educator? We will be able to create classes. You are able to get the students connected through those classrooms. You can create assignments for the students, and therefore you can distribute assignments, which could be individual assignments, could be group work, could be just a certain announcement to check where they are. That all would be done under the Google Classroom. One can grade and send the feedback to the students once the assignments are done. So the entire process of doing teaching plus giving homework and then correcting homework and returning, all that can be done through this portal. And this work would stay with you as a teacher throughout the year if at all you wish to get back to it and refer to it. What the student can do is join the classroom in a very one step process, can interact with the teacher through this portal in a private, safe environment, can attempt the assignments, submit the assignments, access all the resources that the teacher shares, and also get the feedback and work on that feedback. And again, just as the teacher resources are available throughout the year, the student also has the year long work in one place. So that is definitely working pretty well for us. So how does one join Google Classroom? If you have the Google Suite for Education, then that is the way to go forward, because that would allow you to create IDs for your children of all age, whether it is a child in the nursery or in class 12. So for the entire K to 12, your school domain would allow you to create the email IDs, which are the used for children to access the Google Classroom. And once they have that, then they can go to googleclassroom.com as a teacher or a student, and the dashboard would open up. Other way would be in the inbox of Gmail. If you look on the top right, you will find App Grid. And if you click on that, you will be able to identify the classroom logo. So this is where you get started. Once you enter the dashboard, then there is a requirement of join or a create class. So join for the student, but teacher gets both the options of join as well as create class. And class is created by the teacher, and as the teacher creates a class, I'll just give a very short demo of that. There is a code that is generated, and this code is what the student will use to join the class. So if I once the student joins it, they will get a dashboard or interface of something with a header and more. So let's take a look at what Google Classroom looks like in a live mode, and then from there take forward as to how does one use it in teaching and learning process. So if I go to the Google Classroom here, so I hope my presentation and screen is visible. If Vani can or anyone can confirm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
great. So here is where the classroom is. So if you type in for the first time into classroom.google.com, you will get a dashboard. Right now mine is full with the classes that we have, but this is a plus sign that you would get. So as a teacher, I would have an option of join or a create class, but a student will only get the option of join, provided again in your G Suite you have created organizations and the students are separate than the teachers. So once you get that, as a student, they will only click on join and they will type in the code which is being shared. Whereas for a teacher, when you create a class, it's just again 2 clicks almost. You get a dialog box. You can type in the class name, section as per your wish, academic year if you may want to, and then click on create. So that is how you would be able to. In case anyone in the meet right now has noted down the code that showed up, this code will not let you join my classroom because this code has been created for classes in Sanskriti school domain. So just in case you are trying it, that would not work. So once you get into the classroom, so this is the distance learning classroom. We did a live session one of the days, that's on March 11 from Google Office, and teachers had joined in from my school. And this is the interface you get. So here is where you have a stream, classwork, people, and grades. This is teacher's view. So under the stream, we normally advise that you just put announcements. For example, you want them to bring something to the school next day, or a reminder of a certain other kind, or a general interaction that you want to do. Under the classwork is where the rest of the transactions happen. So in the classroom, we are looking at under the classwork, it's advised again to create topics as you create more work for the children. So what are the things that one can do in the Google Classroom is what we would like to share and explain further. And then I'll come back to this classroom to show how it looks from the classroom view. So if we go back, let's talk about with this portal available as a 24/7 virtual classroom or as a blended environment, what are the things that would work? What kind of strategies one should use so that your children don't just have a place where they're saying, hello, I'm good, or I'm here. Other than that, what are the things that you're doing to keep them engaged and connected with you? So again, in terms of the assignments, one can think of creating assignments which are more interactive. So when you're looking at Google Docs, they are definitely great tools for creating collaborative tasks or just assignments where the children are typing in their understanding. But it becomes much more of value if they are interactive documents. So whether it is slides or docs one might use, one can create these interactive documents using certain hyperlinks, adding more layering to the content. And that would give students some variety. It is not only reading that they would be doing or typing in that they would be doing, but they'll be engaged in multiple set of activities. One example that I can share is something where the child is doing a certain research on what coordinate geometry is, who started coordinate geometry, learn about the Cartesian system, and then they have an access to a drawing which is embedded in the Google Doc, and there are certain drag and drop activities that are designed. Again, this is something which you have to take a call on depending on the level you are teaching, the content that you want to deliver. You can also add certain hyperlinks which takes them to a certain online game which you have vetted beforehand, or add more content in terms of links to other websites which you want children to understand, go through, and then put their understanding in the same page. So, in other words, what one is trying to do here is trying to cut that 30 minutes of instructional content into small lessons. So, it could be 5 minutes mini lessons that you are creating. You can put them in one document, or you can put them in number of documents or number of type of assignments. And this would allow children to understand, synthesize what they are learning, and then give them somewhere a place where they put together their understanding, share their understanding with the teacher. So that is a kind of a way to go forward in any kind of a learning where there is a lot of understanding that we are leaving the child to do something at their own pace, and we want them to do a certain objective of learning to be achieved. At the same time, looking ahead, in if you are looking at remote learning, then it will be advised that you take a certain check-ins. So after teaching for 15 minutes, whether it is through a live hangout meet or giving out a video or any other content, take a check as to whether the children have learned it or not. So otherwise, in a normal classroom situation, we look at the children's faces, and most of the time, a good practice the teacher can assess whether the children have understood the lesson or not. Or they raise their hand and they ask the question, or they have a doubt on their faces, which you read, and you are able to answer their questions. So here, use the Google Forms and Google Classroom question feature to ask whether they have understood or not. And again, this would also help you to take kind of an virtual attendance, because they will come into the classroom at a certain time of the day, not necessarily at 9:20 when the class starts on the regular timetable. So whenever they come to the classroom, they will be able to do the content and then let you know that they were there and they have understood the lesson. At the same time, one can start some classroom discussions, which can also go as an assignment. And I'll just explain, going back to the actual classroom, as to why when I say that use them as an assignment, why it is important to put even these discussions under the assignment. So here you can also put in a rubric to assess, let them be accountable for whether they have participated, have they asked their peer for something, or have they appreciated another student's idea, or have they posed a new idea. So all these can become the parts of the rubric. And again, these assignments need not be the graded assignment. Not everything need to be marked. It is just a kind of a class work that is being done. So not everything needs to be a test or assessed assignments. And again, if possible, try to create assignments which are individual, so that students don't have to depend on the group to complete the task before his turn comes in to put in his words. So it is best for remote learning to keep the assignments individual. But again, depending on what you're teaching, who are you teaching, what are the expectations, you can mix and match these strategies. Also, as I said, in a classroom, we look at the faces of the children and we assess how they are feeling. Are they ready for my lesson or not? are they with me or not, or is there something that is distracting them? But when I'm not able to see the students on a daily basis, then it is important for us to do a certain mood check-ins, time and now. And that can be easily done by creating a Google form or even asking a question like in the Google Classroom. So you can create a detailed Google form, or you can keep a simple, just 2 points or 2 question kind of a form where the children will answer and you will be able to get their feedback. The responses of all these Google forms go into a Google Sheet, and therefore you can use the conditional formatting of the Google Forms. You can see use certain add-ons to alert you of the kind of response that the students are giving. So is there a child who needs little more attention? That can be easily detected by their responses. And again, my experience says that when I use a digital portal rather than a face-to-face transactions, children are more honest. They do not fear giving me what they are thinking about. In a classroom situation, they are very wary of what the other students are listening to. So when you ask them a question of a type like this, are you ready to get started with class 12? So was my question to my students few days back, that now we are looking for strategies to do remote learning. I wanted to see, are they ready without their results coming out and a formal start of the class happening. And I'm still going to get few more responses. This is a very small group, fortunately for me this year. But there are children who were concerned about the results, and there are children who don't want to get into studies right now. So they have reached out, and because they know that the other classmates will not get to know who has answered what. So I can keep the settings of this question in classroom to be that I only get to see their responses and not the rest of the class. But turn it around into maybe let the children see the summary of it. So these are the features that one can use in a Google Classroom. And it helps you to decide how you want to go forward in the class. So again, these are the features that would definitely be important for us to use when we are looking at possibility that we may not see our students in a class for a week or two looking ahead.
Ma'am, a quick question. I see a lot of questions on
Yes,
the chat
I'll
around
pause.
Google. Yeah, around Google Documents or Google Docs versus Google Forms for assessment. So, do you have an opinion on subjects that might benefit from either of the two forms, or just the fact that the forms collates all of the results in that manner? Is there any guidance that you can provide to the schools?
Sure. See, both when we look at Google Docs, Forms, Google Slides, every app has its purpose. So when you're looking at assessment, whether it is formative assessment or summative, as you're looking at, there is a certain goal. You want to give them a certain place where they are showing how much they have learned. Whereas Google Docs, and whether it is the Google Doc for just as a word processor or Google Slides, you're giving them an opportunity to do much more than just answer the questions. So that is where the difference would be. So if you're looking for as an assessment tool, then I would say go for Google Forms. But when I say assignment which is graded, then it is an assignment where the children are doing more than just answering yes or no, or answering in a subjective manner. They are possibly creating something as well, and or they are researching and then putting down the information. So those can become your graded or ungraded assignments. So I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. And there are some specific questions on Cambridge. Ma'am, we're not best suited to answer that, so it's best for you to actually talk to Cambridge and find out what the dates, etc. are. Our purpose is to highlight that all of these technologies are either already integrated into classroom or can be integrated into classroom. And also important is that since there are almost, like I said, 80 million users worldwide using G Suite for Education and Google Classroom, it makes it even more imperative for you to understand what is in the best context of your school. So while we leave you with ideas, if you experiment a bit with mix and matches using Cambridge content, even asking for support from the Cambridge team, probably you will be able to get in a more integrated approach. And the advantage is that you will be able, once all of that hard work is put into a platform like Google Classroom, you can repeat it class after class, you can repeat it subject after subject and year on year, because that will become your online resource. It will become like a framework for you to use and share with your teachers. So I would highly recommend that, yes, make that effort and spend that time to understand the best way for your school. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And as Bunny just said, there are millions of users all across world, and I and my colleagues are learning from the people around the world, and then we are picking the practices that suits our system best. We cannot take everything that everybody else is doing, so we learn from them. And because my school is a CBSE school, so I do know that the CBSE exam will not give them these facilities and these access to kind of assessment that we are doing, but we are still using it because it works. It helps children to learn the same content but in different ways. So that is where these strategies have to be selected and picked and dropped depending on what works in individual environment. And of course, getting back to the videos, so it has been highlighted in today's session that videos definitely are going to play a big role. They teach us so much otherwise as well. So how do we use them in either a blended or in a remote learning situation, is to look at using sharing these videos in a safe mode, so that children do not get distracted. So instead of just pushing out a YouTube link to the children, there are ways you can share these videos with the children, and not get them distracted with the other content or advertisements that may be a disturbance. So you may insert a video in Google Slides. The benefit of that is that you can trim the video in that environment. So a 15-minute video may not be worth any class or any student to see, but there is a certain, say from 3 minutes to 4 minutes 15 seconds, a portion you want the children to see and hear. So you can do that very, very nicely, and with very low tech savviness, you can do this as well. You can then publish that slide and use the link of that published slide, so that the video auto plays and the children just get to see what you want them to see. And then follow it up with another document pushed to ask children to share their understanding of what they saw in the video. That's one of the possibilities. There are many. And other could be also use Google Forms. You can even insert a video in the Google form and then base questions on that. So you put questions on the video that has been inserted and then take forward the discussion. Of course, there are lots of videos available as a YouTube or other channels, but you can also record your own videos. So you can use your mobile phone to record the videos, or you can use Screencastify, which is again a Chrome app and an extension. You can easily use that to create short videos in your own ways. One of the tools that I am going to highlight in today's meet is what we have been practicing, and it is working pretty well, is the Edpuzzle. So if you are keen to look at what it does, I have put the link of the website. You can explore this later. But what it does is it takes a video and converts it into a lesson. What I mean by that is that it allows you to insert questions. It also allows you to also add in a voice note or a complete voice over. So if you get a nice video available through any of the channels, and then you want it to be customized for yourself, then Edpuzzle allows you to do. And it also allows you to follow the progress of the students, whether the student has actually watched the video or not, and whether the student has watched it 100% or partly. So this is one of the screenshots that we are sharing with you of a previous activity done in our school during the pollution break time, as we call it pollution break, because the school was closed during those highly polluted days. So at that time, again, the video that was shared, we could see that some students have watched, some have not watched. Some watched it in a certain specified time and they answered all these questions. And some child went back to and fro to answer those questions. And some students did not even finish watching it. So that helped me design my lesson forward when I saw them back the next week. Just to give you the feel of this in a slightly closer look, I'm going back to the Google Classroom. And here is where you will be able to see how one can plan ahead of time and then uh, design the activities. And then when you're ready, you can assign them. So one is definitely use a topic. And under the topic, these assignments have been given. Now, this could be an assessment in terms of a Google form, as you can see here. It could also be a material that has been assigned to them. So there is a resource, which is a link to a certain website, which I know works very well for students to learn the topic of what I'm showcasing here of circles and circumference and area of circle. At the same time, this is where the Edpuzzle comes in. So I assigned it to 6, out of which 2 have been graded, 2 are still to do it, 2 have finished turned in, but I haven't looked at it. So this is the way it kind of looks like. But I think it will really be helpful if I take you to the Edpuzzle website and show you what this video does and what do we mean by turning it into a lesson. So in Edpuzzle, you can integrate it with Google Classroom. So as you can see here, this was assigned to a Google Classroom, which I had imported, and the students' roster gets imported directly along with it. Very similar to this is what Khan Academy also allows you to do. But there is a little bit of a difference in terms of how the workflow goes, but the roster definitely gets imported in both the cases. And here you're looking at the way students had done this, and that day it was just a demo lesson, so some of my colleagues had joined in to help me showcase that. And here you can see that 3 had completed and the others had not started watching the video. So this is the kind of a report you would get. And if I open a particular student report, then I can see how the student had answered, how much time they took, and how well they have answered. Or if there is a red dot, then you would know that the student has not been able to answer that particular question correctly. Again, a minute or maybe few minutes, let's take a look at what exactly Edpuzzle video looks like. So this is a video which was imported, used from a YouTube channel, and then the questions have been inserted. I'm going to take a minute if Bani thinks it is okay with the time, I'm going to just play the video and show you how the question comes up and how the student cannot move forward till they answer the question. So Bani, shall I do a demo of this? Okay, so I'm...
Yes, ma'am. I think
Yeah,
we can
okay.
go ahead.
We are good with time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick short demo of Edpuzzle. So this is the video and I'm going to play it and let's see what happens. So before we reach the question, as you can see that dot, what I tried to showcase was if I try to speed up the video, take it ahead, it doesn't allow. Because with the students, I have set the condition that this video will not let them skip the video. So that is also definitely something which works very well, because otherwise the children will speed through the video and think that they have watched it. But I want them to watch all the part that I have inserted for them. So this is where the question was inserted. The question could be a multiple choice question or a short text question. Multiple choice is preferred because of what I'm going to show right now. So suppose the student picks up the space within a circle and they submit. Then there need to be a certain feedback coming in. So circumference of a circle, well, we know it will calculate the distance around the circle. But suppose the child chooses to answer the space within the circle and submit. Then the moment you do that, then it will automatically give them the feedback that their answer was wrong, and they have the right answer also comes up. So this is the kind of an instant feedback that the video is allowing or Edpuzzle is allowing for us to use. Going back to the Edpuzzle website, this is where we will be able to show you in 2 minutes as to where you can get started. And then again, since this is again open web, you can go create your account and play with it before you take it to the classroom. So this is where you can then go to content and you can click on my content and add content. So you can then either create a new video or upload a video. So if you have created a short video which you want to turn into a lesson using Edpuzzle, you can upload your own video as well. Or your students have created and you can use that. So you can create a video from here, and then the video that you want to select can be from any of these channels which have been written and listed here. So these are the popular channels, and you can see you have the Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle channel would mean there is a teacher who had used a certain video and converted it into an Edpuzzle lesson. That lesson is also available for you to use. So for you or your colleagues or your teachers, if time is a constraint, then there are resources which are readily available for you to use and get started with. You can also take either YouTube, Khan Academy, National Geographic, this endless list, and each one of these are great channels for all possible subjects that we need to cover in our school curriculum. And then it will allow you to not only add in questions, but also crop. So a 5 minutes video is the max that I would advise anyone to share in their classroom. Best would be keeping it to 2 to 3 minutes. But if your lesson gets completed in 5 minutes, then crop that 20 minutes or 15 minutes video to 5 minute segment, and then use it as an Edpuzzle lesson, and then share it with the students. So this definitely serves a lot of possibilities for us, because it will help you to not only just share the content with the children, but also see whether they have understood the lesson or not. So that is something which helps us to complete the transaction. So again, just to summarize before I hand over to Vinod, these are few of the strategies that we have to test out when we are looking at remote learning. But each day or after each transaction, each interaction, it is important for us to get back and see whether it helped the students or not. So multiple set of activities, putting a lesson of 30 minutes in chunks of 5 to 7 minutes, that is most important, and giving them variety of activities rather than only watch the video and move on to doing the exercise from your notebook. That possibly is not going to help in the current scenario. So any questions for me, Bani, before I hand over?
No, ma'am, thank you so much. I think there were a couple of questions in terms of videos on Edcastle not working, but that might just be because you've muted them. Otherwise, it's an independent, app where you can actually choose, pick and choose, and it will work absolutely effectively for your students. Please make sure that you do advise and recommend a certain minimum bandwidth. And I second ma'am's, inputs in terms of shorter videos, in terms of the kind of pedagogy that you would use online, because from a user's perspective, we have heard very often that we should not assume that all of the subjects should be taught in a single day from 8 to 2 p.m. and that the student will be active across all these classrooms just because we are delivering the same thing that we would have done in the classroom. It is really, really important to think through that. So, ma'am, if you could allude a bit more from a student perspective, that will be very helpful in terms of strategies.
Yeah, right, Bunny, you said that very well. We are planning right now from Tuesday to start our distance learning for our class 10th and 12th at Sanskriti School. So, because we had planned our classes to start, in fact, from 12th, but then we moved it to 17th. But now, because of the closure of the schools, we have decided to stick to the decision that we will start teaching, but now it will be distance learning. So we are still in process of putting our strategy in place and getting ourselves ready. But the very first decision that we took was that we will not do 8 to 2 o'clock kind of a teaching. So it is going to be 3 subjects that will be kind of, the roster will be prepared for only 3 subjects, which typically means an hour is being allocated. That means the activities that are designed should not take more than 1 hour for the child to do in a certain day. So there will be 3 hours of engagement that will be designed by the teacher. So it will be 3 subjects each day, out of which the video or a hangout will be kept to 15 minutes. Maximum maybe 20-25 minutes, depending on if the teacher wants to take hangout to clear doubts of the previous lesson. Or any other way of reaching out in terms of an interaction through a certain recording that has been shared with the children about clearing their doubts of, say, exercise that has been asked.